As the African continent is battling with a myriad of challenges, from instability, underdevelopment to corruption, the African peer review mechanism is marking 22 years of its existence. And Khayelihle Khumalo, SABC News Reporter, joins us now from that event in Pretoria. Khayelihle, of course, this is one of those moments that are quite key for the African continent, and one wonders what is coming out from some of the discussions where you are about, you think about challenges from the DRC to Sudan, and quite a number of, in fact, a number of developments around some of the countries around the continent.
Well, absolutely, Bongi. Quite a milestone for these continental instruments. So when you talk about good governance, for example, so it's one of the major issues that they really focus on. But you look at the journey from 2003 when they were established. I mean, you talk about NEPAD, that vision for the African continent, where also self-assessment by the peers in the continent. So a very key instrument for the African continent, especially for the AU, if you talk about the implementation of Agenda 2063. But to really look at this particular moment, Bongi, we're joined by Dr. McBride Kalamba, of course. He's with the APRM. So, sir, let's look at the significance of tonight. I mean, obviously, quite a myriad of challenges facing the continent. And I would imagine that APRM, you have such a very big role to play in terms of inculcating the culture of good governance, making sure that we see sustainable development really prevailing in the continent.
Thank you, Percy, and thank you to our listeners for joining us. First is to mention that the APRM is an instrument that belongs to every African. It was established in 2003. In order to attend to the challenges of governance on the continent across all countries. And when we talk of governance, we are talking, of course, of the state, but also talking of the citizen. So this is an instrument that should be of interest to everyone. Since our establishment in 2003, we have registered some very significant milestones. First of all, the mechanism itself for the African Union, for governments to agree that they need such a mechanism, is a milestone because it subjects a government to an external review of how it governs its political, its economic, its social sectors. So that in itself is a milestone. Not to mention that we have up to 44 countries that have voluntarily acceded to the APRM. And of those 44, about 26 have undertaken what we call first generation, second generation reviews and targeted reviews. So this is a very significant milestone. But I should also highlight that since then, the confidence in the APRM has grown. We have had since 2017 what we are calling an expanded mandate now that put upon the APRM to track governance in very specific areas and to provide support to governments. One such area, I think you've heard in the news, is our support to member states in the area of credit rating agencies. And this program has gone to a point where we are now talking about establishing the Africa Credit Rating Agency. We now produce the Africa Governance Report on very key issues. We have done so on constitutional change of government, which is a very, very serious matter that concerns security and other aspects. We have also done so on natural resource governance. All these are developments that show you that there's growing confidence in the mechanism, its relevance. It's not just a diagnostic tool for the basics and fundamentals of how the state is administered, but for very special areas that require collaborated effort and concerted effort within the African Union.
And while we have you, Doctor, I would imagine one of the key focal points you have, it's around the early warning systems, for the conflict, especially now. I mean, you look at the situation in Eastern DRC and many other hotspots as well. I would imagine it's a very key area to essentially nip it in the bud before the escalations.
Yes, so, I mean, historically, if you look at the APRM reports, you are talking of the report of Kenya, the report of Kenya, of course, talking about the elections. You're talking about the report of South Africa on the issue of xenophobia when we first did the review. You're talking about the gap analysis of Sudan and Mozambique. All these events were, I would use the term, foreseen in the assessments that we undertook. So it's very clear that our assessments are not just about the public sector reforms and governance reforms. They have actually signaled potential unrest, potential security breach, and so on. And what we are saying today, in particular, our new CEO, Ambassador Marie-Antoinette Rose-Quatry, is that the APRM instrument needs to evolve into an early warning system to allow for an early response in circumstances where you have such scenarios regarding security. Let me also mention, we are now evolving towards establishing a more profound program on dealing with the issues that emerge from the assessments and the reviews. You know that each review is accompanied by what we call a national program of action. But we have had challenges in ensuring that those recommendations that are in that national program of action are implemented. And what we are saying now is that we are going to institute what we are calling a governance support program, which will be two-pronged. Firstly is to mobilize resources to allow countries to implement the recommendations. And secondly is to provide technical support to the countries in the implementation of those recommendations. And mind you, when I talk of technical support, I'm not talking about technical support in the manner that is provided by other multilaterals like the UN. We are talking of mobilizing the expertise from the continent, because different countries have different expertise, to invest in supporting a particular member state to implement their recommendations. All this is a sense of confidence, comes from a sense of confidence and the dynamism that the institution has actually brought in this space of governance. There are a variety of other issues that are...
Before I let you go, Doctor, I mean, these are very uncertain times, given the geopolitical issues. Institutions like APRM, what can we do to position Africa to be well-placed in terms of responding to these global challenges we have?
Well, the African Union, part of the agenda is regional integration, and the architecture for regional integration starts from the regional economic communities, SADC, the East African Community, ECOWAS, that these issues have to have, first of all, be attended to at a regional level and then consolidated at a continental level into a common position. There are so many issues, but I can tell you for sure that when you look at the major issues today, one of which is the reform of the global financial architecture, there is a general consensus within the African Union that we should take particular positions on specific issues. For instance, tax. Issues regarding the tax convention, issues regarding international financial institutions, reform of international financial institutions, issues regarding the reform of the UN in critical aspects as well. So that is exactly what the AU was established for, and that is what the APRM contributes to as an instrument to provide the relevant evidence, information, analysis, and intelligence to allow these states to make decisions that are actually consequential for the common position.
All right, Doctor, thank you so much indeed for that. So, Bongiwe and Thembekile, quite a very important time here at the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, as the APRM is marking what is an incredible milestone. Obviously, there is still quite a lot to be explored during the course of the attempt. So with that, back to you in Johannesburg.
All right, Khayelihle there, and it's interesting to hear, Khayelihle, that about 44 countries are voluntarily acceding to the APRM, but also it begs the question how much of it is being implemented when it comes to some of these countries and even some of the heads of state that over time have come into sharp focus for not taking it seriously. But let's see then how, of course, the developments where you are continue throughout the evening. That's my colleague there, Khayelihle Khumalo, SABC News reporter, joining us from Pretoria.